Hello class, Asmita teacher here. In our previous presentations, we have learnt about natural resources, air and water, and in today's lecture, we will be discussing about the natural resource land. Land is seen in the form of stones, soil, and big rocks. It is not flat everywhere. It is hilly in some places and flat in others. All terrestrial animals, including man, live on land. Terrestrial animals are those animals which live on land. Some terrestrials dig burrows or holes in the ground for shelter. This means that they use land for fulfilling their needs. We also use land for farming and for building houses and roads. We make use of plants and animals in the forests that grow on land. The minerals, crude oil, and natural gas obtained from the earth are very important for us. It means that land is an important resource. So, what is this land made up of? If the land has mature soil or the soil that has completely developed or undergone the process of changes, the topmost layer is formed by the decomposition of the remains of plants and animals. This layer is called humus. It is usually found in dense forests. Humus is the layer formed on soil due to the decomposition of dead plants and animals by microbes. Whenever a plant or animal body will die, microscopic organisms act on them and convert them into simple substances. These substances mix with the soil and become a part of the soil. This is called as decomposition. Humus supplies nutrients to the soil. Humus is also important for aerating the soil, that means giving oxygen or air to the soil, and for holding water in the soil. The proportion of humus in the upper layer of good fertile soil is about 33 to 50%. The land below this is full of sand, soil, small stones, worms, and insects. Soil and pieces of bedrock are found below this layer of land. This soil is immature. Further below this layer, the proportion of soil decreases and of rock increases. That means the quantity or the proportion of soil in the upper layers is more compared to the lower layers. In the lower layers, you will find greater quantity of rocks compared to soil. This is the layer of bedrock. The main minerals in the soil are derived from these rocks. As we have just discussed that the main minerals in the soil are derived from the bedrocks, that is the reason why soil in different regions is different. Some places you may find red color soil, some places black, some places light brown, some places dark brown. So, all these different colors of the soil are because of the minerals that are present in the soil. The mineral decides the color of the soil. Similarly, the minerals decide the texture of the soil. Some soil are smooth to touch, some are rough and coarse. The texture of the soil is also determined by the minerals that are present in the bedrock. Now let's learn a very important process of soil formation. The soil on the land is formed by a natural process. The abiotic components of soil. Abiotic components which are non-living. The abiotic components of soil are supplied through the weathering of the bedrock. Now what is this weathering? Due to the heat of the sun, action of the wind and water, the bedrock breaks into pieces. This process is called as weathering of the rock. Stones, sand, and soil are formed from these pieces. Some biotic factors also lead to soil formation. Microbes, that is, microscopic organisms, worms, and insects are found among them. Rodents like mice and rats are also found here. The roots of trees growing on the land also help weathering of rocks. That means the microscopic organisms, worms, insects, rodents, and the roots of the trees. These biotic components, living components of the environment, also help in the process of weathering of rocks. But this process of soil formation is extremely slow and a continuous process. It takes about 1,000 years for a 2.5 centimeter thick layer of mature soil to form. Hence, we say that soil has both biotic and abiotic constituents. That is, soil is made up of living as well as non living components of the environment. The soil can get destroyed in a short period due to floods, storms, and human activities such as mining. Mining is the process by which minerals are removed from deep down inside the earth. That is why it is necessary to conserve soil and to prevent erosion of soil. What is this erosion? Erosion is the washing away of soil because of the wind and water. In the previous slide, we had seen how the wind, water, and sun lead to weathering of rock. This weathered rock that is broken into smaller pieces can easily be carried away by the extreme speed of wind and water. That is called as erosion. This erosion will take away the top layer or the fertile layer of the soil and leave the land barren. Such barren land is of going to be no use to us for agriculture or for farming. So then what is the remedy to prevent this erosion, or how can we conserve this soil? The best remedy for this is to increase the green cover of the land. We have to plant as many trees as possible at as many places as possible. Erosion of land can be reduced if grass, trees, and bushes are grown in it. The roots of these plants hold on to the soil tightly and hence does not allow that soil to get washed away because of the wind and the water. So the speed of the wind and the water can be reduced because of these plants, and that they will not be able to carry away our fertile layer of soil. Hence, plantation of trees, what we call as afforestation, has to be done at as many places as possible so that the erosion of soil can be controlled. Now let us discuss another important topic, that is fossil fuels. Let us understand how are these fossil fuels formed and what are they exactly. About 300 million years ago, the earth was covered with lots of vegetation. Dead plants fell into swampy water, that is, water which is muddy or water which has got a quantity of soil mixed in it, and the mud prevented them from rotting away. So, these plants which were fallen into this swampy soil, the plants with the dead plants did not get rotten away because of the mud present in the water. Over the years, the mud piled up and squashed the plant remains. That is, one layer above the other of this mud kept on piling, was formed one layer above the other, and this pressed the below layers. They applied extra pressure on the below layers, and after millions of years, by staying under this pressure, the mud became rock and the plants became coal. That is how we get our coal. The dead plants were converted into coal because of the extreme heat and extreme pressure that was applied on the dead plants inside the earth. Similar is the process of formation of petroleum and natural gas. Like plants, millions of years ago, tiny animals lived in the sea. This is somewhere 300 to 400 millions of years ago. When these animals died, they fell into the mud and sand at the bottom of the sea, but they did not rot away. Over millions of years, the animal remains were buried deeper by the mud and the sand. Same like the formation of coal, here also one layer over the above of the mud kept on forming, and these above layers exerted extra pressure on the below layers. The below layers of mud converted into rocks, and the dead bodies of these animals converted into crude oil and natural gas. The temperature and pressure changed the mud and sand into rock, and the dead animals were converted into crude oil and natural gas. We get fuels like petrol, diesel, kerosene, paraffin, and other useful materials like tar and wax from the fossil fuel called crude oil. That was all about land. Now let us understand why is it important for we the human beings to be very careful about the use of these resources, whether it is land, water or air. These natural resources are available on the earth for our use, for our need. How much we need, actually that much supply is available. But man is greedy. We want more and more, and because of this greed we are not able to have these resources or use these resources in a proper way. So basically nature has sufficient supply for our need, but it cannot provide for our greed. It is very important that we humans control our greed. Living things use land, water, and air available on earth, and so does man. So, all living things include plants, including animals, including humans, whether they are microscopic or whether they are huge animals or plants. Every living organism on this earth is using the land, water, and air for fulfilling their basic requirements. That is why they are called as natural resources. However, the portions of these resources that are actually put to use are very small as compared to the whole earth. If you observe the table, you will find that we have got 29% of land, 0.3% of potable water or fresh water, and 21% of oxygen. Even of these small proportions, the resources shown in the above table are sufficient for all living things. Only it is necessary for man to control his greed. As I told you in the beginning, the natural resources are sufficient for our need but are not sufficient for our greed. So it is very important that man controls his greed. In other words, he must use these resources judicially with the awareness that they are meant for all other living things and not just for mankind. It is not only for humans that we have got this land, water, and air. These are to be used by other living things also. Man has to keep that in mind and use these resources very carefully. He should not waste them. He should not exploit them. He should not take anything that belongs to other living things. We are cutting down the trees, capturing the areas of the forest for our development, for our housing, for our progress. But we forget that those trees, those jungles, that land, that water body was for those animals, those plants living in that area. We don't think about them. We only think about our own selves. We have become very greedy. We have become very self-centered. So now the time has come when we accept our responsibility control our greed, start the judicious, responsible use of these resources, and remember that we have to share this earth with the other living things also. That is the most important thing. Just few days back, you must have heard the news on the news channels about the cyclone Nisarg, how it has impacted us, the coastal areas of Maharashtra, how they are being damaged to a very great extent. The cyclone, which was going to have a severe effect on states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Madhya Pradesh. So, this cyclone is a natural process. It happens on a natural basis. So, how are we able to understand it, or how do we come to know about it? Same way, every rainy season, before the rainy season starts, we get information about how much quantity of rain we will get, when will the rain start, how it will be, when it has reached Kerala, when it is going to reach Maharashtra. So, how are we able to get the information of these natural processes that are happening in our environment? There are some institutes which provide us these information. Let us understand about these institutes now. This institute name is India Meteorological Department. We also refer to it as IMD, India Meteorological Department. IMD was established in 1875 for studying the weather in the Indian subcontinent. So, what will be the weather of our country? That work study is being done by this IMD. The main function of IMD is to observe the weather and to make weather forecast. That is to tell in advance to the people whether any problems they are going to face. That is called as forecast, to tell in advance. This institute also conducts research related to changes in weather, makes forecast about rains, and studies the development related to global warming. So it is not only doing the work of giving us weather forecast, but it is also doing a very important work in research on understanding the changes that are happening in our environment because of global warming. So the work done by IMD is a very important task. That brings us to the end of our first chapter, that is natural resources, air, water, and land. I hope after understanding the concepts explained in this lesson, you become a responsible citizen and accept your responsibility towards the conservation, towards the protection, and towards the care and responsible handling of these resources of air, water, and land. Thank you.